Welcome back to the break room. Today, we're going through all the questions we have after the Secret Invasion finale because, boy, do we have a lot.
Too many.
Too many. I'm Brandon Barrick, but who cares? Joining me today, we got Jay Washington.
Hey, I can do this. Trust me, this is editorial. I'm not promoting anything. I'm going to have to always say that on this so people can be like, look at him do it.
Yeah.
It's editorial.
Yeah.
I'm not promoting anything. I'm being critiquing. I'm saying my feelings.
I will say, there's SAG has been pretty good about messaging people and being like, hey, that was a little bit too much for us. We'd appreciate if you took that down or whatever. So we've tried to be in good communication with folks over at SAG. We have not gotten anything like that yet. So when we do, we'll
I feel like you're
adjust,
poking the beast here.
Thank God, because I'm going to need the strike fund in a minute for the rent.
The other gentleman who just spoke is producer John, who did not let me introduce him before he began speaking.
I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again.
You now have agency, Pinocchio.
We have an hour of show, and I will no longer talk.
No, now you can talk now that you've been introduced.
I'm a real boy.
You're a real boy now. Let's talk about that strike, as we mentioned. You know, SAG-AFTRA, they've informed that entertainment journalists like us are allowed to cover movies, TV, entertainment news during the strike, also to do reviews of stuff.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to do. We, of course, support SAG and the WGA in their strikes. We want the artists to get what they deserve. Speaking of a nefarious cabal of people in power trying to destroy our society from the inside out.
Good segue.
Let's talk about Secret Invasion, folks. We have a lot of questions after that show, and I bet you do too. So we've compiled a list of some of our bigger questions. We want to get through them. If you're watching right now on Twitch, send in some of your big questions in the chat. Maybe we'll get to them.
If you're watching on YouTube, drop us a comment.
Yeah.
I'll get in there and...
Yeah, drop a comment on YouTube. We got a lot to talk about with the show as time goes on, and we wait for the next big thing, the Marvels in the MCU universe. I just said universe.
Wait, Loki is first.
Yeah, Loki. That's what I was like, Loki
Fucking
season 2.
idiot.
Yeah, because I was like, Loki season, you just went straight to the Marvels. I was like, Loki season 2.
I take it back.
Echo actually might be before.
No, Echo's November.
Echo should be.
Late November.
Look.
Anyways, let's talk about our big questions from Secret Invasion. Let's start around the topic of Soren's death.
Okay.
This is like the beginning,
Yeah.
I think. This happens pre-show, if you will.
There are a lot of deaths.
There's a lot of deaths on this
We were
show.
talking earlier in the office.
On screen
I think
and
that
off
this
screen.
is the most named character deaths that we've gotten in an MCU project not named Infinity War, right? Even the movies, they don't. This 3 main characters that we knew about before this show started that died: Soren, Maria Hill, and Talos.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
But
It's a lot. Soren's death. There was some speculation that maybe it wasn't real. Maybe it was going to be a device of the show. Turned out not to be the case.
Yeah, I felt like it was.
Could still be the case. Maybe she's not dead, but I don't know why.
We saw her in a flashback.
Yeah.
With G'iah in that I don't know, that room that they were all hanging out in.
The room in Brixton.
Sure. Yeah. And I personally was sort of like, this feels really hollow. That
And they were saying her name like every episode.
Talos keeps saying like it was Gravik's people that killed her. I thought maybe we would get like more of an explanation. It didn't seem like it really affected G'iah that much. She felt sad for a minute, and then like went and double crossed her father right afterward.
Yeah.
But I think I think Soren's death wasn't meant to affect G'iah as much as it was meant to affect Talos.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, like, you go from Captain Marvel Talos, who was like, I'm just trying to stop, the Kree. I want to live.
Oh, I like this Talos.
I want to live. And then he's beaten.
Yeah.
He's beaten down, and he's lost his daughter, but he lost his wife.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for him was his wife. So I think it was the more of affecting him. Now, G'iah was going to be strong one way or another. She's the opposite of Gravik. She's literally the opposite of Gravik. And so I think this was about just how Talos is. Now, will it affect G'iah? Will it make it stronger?
It's physically incapable for her to get stronger.
She's still.
She cannot get stronger.
You say she's the opposite of Gravik, but she still allowed the Russia Day celebration bomb to go off.
I mean,
she did nothing to stop it.
I mean, she kind of got like she's okay. So she's kind of like. Hear me out.
I'll hear you out.
Hear me out. She's conflicted because again, remember the very first episode when Beto walks to the gate. What do you want? Home in my own skin. She has the belief Gravik wants a home. Fury is the person that said he would get it, and it feels like a lie that you didn't. So it's like she kind of is on that, fight for that. But at the same time, she's like, my daddy might have been right, even though he was wrong the way he said it. Because, like, even though Talos was like, I'm going to talk to the UN, I got a plan. They're going to love us. Like, no, they're not.
Cut to Ritz and
Ritz and be like,
we got to kill everyone, these greed motherfuckers.
Kill all these motherfuckers. You're like, no!
You know, you bring up a good point about Talos and maybe how Soren's death was supposed to be more impactful on his character. I'm not really a flashbacks guy. We had a couple of them in this show. I think we could have done with more. I would have loved to have seen Soren's death or Soren's funeral and how that impacts Talos and him not being able to be with his daughter. He's alone in that moment.
You open up that door. I get when we're talking about Soren's death, but if you open up the door for that flashback, then we're going to have to get the flashback of when did they kidnap Ross?
No, you're right.
When did they kidnap Brody?
Those are questions that we all want answers to. And like I said, I'm not really a big flashbacks guy because I agree with what you're saying. But like, I do feel like we needed to not just be told about those things happening. It would have been more impactful if we had been able to see them.
But don't you think we still can? I think we keep forgetting there's a movie and another show. So there's still the Marvels, and then there's still Armor Wars. Well, two movies coming out, right? So maybe those stories can be told.
I think Brave New World will, before Armor Wars, will get into a lot of this stuff.
Oh, I think, yeah.
And Thunderbolts, too.
Thunderbolts may do it. Yeah, all these things can tell you about everything that we feel like. I think that's a problem per se. A lot of people feel like all of these shows have to be closed up no matter what. Once the show starts, everything about that show needs to end by the last episode. And forgetting that this is a giant-ass TV show that the MCU is.
Right.
And we're in season 5 of the MCU's TV show, right? And every movie and series is just another show, another episode.
This was an interesting thing that I was seeing online. It's like, so I've always sort of subscribed to that same philosophy of like, these are episodes of television, and those Avengers movies are season finales, and then we kind of roll into the next season. And these shows, for a lot of people, have maybe felt like, you know, in the like late 2000s when TV was switching from 24 episodes a season to shorter seasons, 13 episodes or whatever. There were all these shows like Lost or Heroes or whatever that felt like it was like, ooh, these like 6 episodes in here that I didn't need.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think some of these Marvel shows are starting to feel a little bit like the things that are in between the things. And I'm hoping that Marvel finds a way to make them feel a little bit more like their movies. Because right now, I think they're trying to tell the majority of their story in the films. Because we start at Secret Invasion with Fury getting off the spaceship. And the only fucking difference when we end the show is that he's with his wife, who we didn't know about before the show started.
And Nick Fury was horny.
He's not really a changed man at the end
yes,
of the show.
Yes, he is. He was horny.
He's less horny.
He's less horny. Look, he told for sure. He was like,
he was changed, and then he was like, all right, I'll kiss this.
He was like, piece of crap. Let me get. Also, I tweeted this out. I want y'all to look at Vara in a true form. Don't she look like a kid from an episode of Different Strokes? Now the world don't move.
Which one?
She looked like one of Arnold's friends.
Oh, okay.
But Nick Fury was hornier now. He was like, I almost shot the only piece of ass I was gonna get. Like, he ain't finna get none. Guy ain't finna give him none. Maria Hill was like, Nick, get your bum ass away from me.
Do you think he's like, you can keep the green, just change the teeth to normal human teeth?
Yes, but before you do anything,
change
them teeth. Because you around this motherfucker with a mouthful of razors, and you not finna suck on my saber and kill it. Like,
suck on my saber.
Oh boy.
Oh, Jay, it's gonna be a few more weeks until you're back on the show.
I think you're onto something.
Thanks, John.
I think you're onto something, John, and it's mainly because
it's gonna be a few more weeks when Jay's back on the show.
It's mainly because the MCU hasn't given us a reason for these shows to matter to the movies as much. And I think the first one that's going to do that will be the Marvels, and that having the Miss Marvel show as like an explanation of Kamala Khan and where her powers come from will work a lot better than trying to shoehorn that into a movie.
Right.
Now, but for the most part, it seems like for these movies, they're just hand-waving away the shows, and they don't really matter. Don't worry about that.
But I think they do. I think we keep forgetting we're so used to everything. The first 3 phases of Marvel, everything literally was like chain link next to each other, right?
A little bit, yes.
For the most part.
I think there's a lot of retconning that happens later on.
Of course, I mean, yeah. But for the most part, everything fit into something, to the next thing, right? But now we're telling a whole new story, and the story I think a lot of people keep forgetting it, and I know some people are going to say it's trying to sound like me excusing it, but this story is a multiversal story.
Sure.
So it's about the world at large. We're not just focused on one group. We're focused on all these different things because now we're learning about different dimensions, different entities, and everything. And it all converges. We all are just like, okay, so how does this all tie into the Kang Dynasty? How does this all tie into Secret Wars? And I think because we haven't got a succinct answer as to what exactly everything is, people are like, well, what is this doing? But little by little, we're starting to get that. You know, yeah, you're going to have the Marvels, and you bring in Kamala Khan and you bring in Monica Rambeau because you're getting ready to have a new team of Avengers anyway. You're building your teams. Fury is going to retire. You got the all-powerful wizard chick now who's the mother of all dragons, Avengers, and shit in the galaxy, because Jesus Christ. But you're having all these different things happen, and they're all leading to something.
Yeah.
So I think we got to, I know it's that whole let it play out, and I don't think everything is just empty. Because, again, Moon Knight, it introduced the gods and everything else. There's a reason. The Eternals introduced the gods. Yes, Tiamat is still out of water, out of an ocean like this. But we find out Nick Fury has had a team of Skrulls dealing with stuff for decades.
Well, and you're right? So what I think, it's really hard to preach patience, but you look at Phase 4 and you look at Phase 5, the only show that has had a fall, you're saying like, oh, they don't tie in, or the movies hand-wave the shows a little bit. The only show that's had a movie that followed the show really was Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
Well, hold on. I'm so sorry. I just want to lay out my full thought. They've expanded this world so much, phases 4 and 5. We haven't really gotten sequels to any of these shows. I lost my train of thought because you cut me off, and I want you to continue.
Say anything. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that Loki kind of plays into Quantumania in that it
really doesn't.
It introduces the idea of Kang.
Different guy.
A different guy, but a Kang. Even though he goes by He Who Remains, he is a
and
Kang.
the multiverse, the branches.
Yeah.
Because we keep seeing that is a big thing. We keep seeing that.
Is that No Way Home? Is that Loki? Is that any of this? And so the point that I was going to make was that
cut him off.
So Infinity War Endgame, those came out in 2019, and those took place in 2019, 5-year time jump, 2023.
Yes.
And we have spent the last 5 years playing in the following 2 years, 2023 to 2025. So we've almost caught up to the time jump. So we're telling all of this story, and in our reality, it's taken about 5 years, but in the MCU's reality, it's only been a year or two.
Sure.
So like to all these people's frustrations, I hear them and I understand them and I feel them as well. Hey, why isn't anyone asking these questions about this Tiamat thing that's in the ocean? Why are we not seeing follow up for this thing that's happened or that thing that's happened? And I think really the answer is like, well, the story that they're trying to tell, they've taken too long to tell it, and we haven't caught up to it yet, and we're getting impatient as fans, but they haven't come in and done the resolutions yet.
But I've also said this one thing, and I hear you with that. We're telling a story about a different time has happened in this lapse, right? What we don't know is, and don't realize, I seem to realize, some things are happening consecutively and concurrently.
Right.
We remember, when you see Thor 1 is happening at the exact same time as the Incredible Hulk is happening. You have those.
It's the same week.
And
same
Iron
week.
Man.
And Iron Man. All of those are happening in the same week. So we're looking at different shows happening at different points. We're like, oh, this is a different point in time here and here. When we don't realize a lot of it, not all of it, a lot of it is happening at the exact same time. A lot of it is this, yes, we know most of this stuff is post-blip. Snapping. Excuse me. Refuse to do it. It's post-blip, snap, whatever they're going to call it. What they do call it. But it's most post-blip, right? But we don't know where everything falls in. So we don't know. Again, I've always been under the impression, this has been my belief, that Quantumania, Loki, WandaVision, No Way Home, I think it's one more, and What If are all happening at the exact same time. Hawkeye as well.
Yeah.
Because it's all those are happening at the exact same time because that's how you break the multiverse.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and there's this multiverse theory about phases 4 and 5 right now.
There are other...
That some of these shows are happening in different universes or whatever. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think the leading theory, right, is that like in No Way Home, Spider-Man swings through Rockefeller Center and it's Christmas time, and you also have the end of Hawkeye, and it's also takes place in Rockefeller Center during Christmas time, and there's some like differences there that don't necessarily line up, and people are like, oh, they're different universes in that case, and I think that that's maybe just a case of two productions that weren't on the same page or whatever, but, you know, it could be an interesting explanation.
Yeah. Well, we've answered one question so far. Really getting into it. No, I mean, there's a lot. I think we're all hoping that there is a master plan, but it does feel like, you know, the little slip-ups of like, oh, the Statue of Liberty was green, and then they switch it back to gold.
Right.
It's like, oh, these little slip-ups make us worry that like they're not having a full grasp of what's going on, and they don't really know.
And you know,
and
I think
they're mapping it out as they go. But this is a problem the comic books have too, where it's like, why does anyone live in New York City in the Marvel comic books universe? Why does anyone live in Gotham City in the Batman universe? Because it's like these things are happening every day in those comics, and we don't make those hard of a questions. It's just like when they put this stuff to celluloid, which they don't do anymore, but if you put it to film, you put it to television, it feels more permanent, and you're like, this should be well thought out and planned out, and when it's not, we get a little frustrated.
Eric put out a great deep dive video a couple of months ago. I don't remember exactly what the headline subject was, but in the video, he sort of talks about like, you know, in the pre-Endgame timeline for Marvel Studios, they were putting out 2 movies a year, 3 movies a year max, and that's what 6 hours of content a year. Now we just got not quite 6 hours of content in a show, but like we're getting like 18 hours of content per year. It's so much more to try to master plan. And I think like we had that story a couple of years ago that like all these Marvel executives went to some retreat somewhere and they planned out the next 10 years. I think that's real. I think that's true. And I think that like the answer is right. There's a lot of things that have changed, pandemic, strikes, all that kind of stuff. But I do think that there is this master plan, but at the same time, they're leaving some of the finer details to the creatives who maybe don't have a perfect grasp on all of the lore of the MCU, and that's where we're getting these kind of issues.
I think the finer details, because we're so busy now watching these shows looking for them.
Yeah,
I think that's the problem. I think we're watching every single thing in the MCU with a fine-tooth comb, because we're like, what does this connect to directly? Instead of just, because we got to the point that for a while we were just watching them, right? We're just watching them, enjoying them, or not liking them. It's which you people are totally fine to not like stuff.
I've heard of it.
You know, like some people are just like, oh, who's watching Secret Invasion? Me? I was watching it because I like watching espionage joints. But I was watching it. I wasn't trying to watch it with a fine-tooth comb. Be like, what is that in the background? Who is that over there? People are doing those. Now, granted, shouts out Eric Voss with his deep dives, who does things like that. But we're so busy looking for those finer points that maybe those finer points are all gonna come back later into something else. Maybe because we're waiting on them.
And that's a really good point, because Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The First Avenger, those are movies that I didn't particularly love when I watched them for the first time, but Marvel has filled in the blanks of a lot of those projects, and when they were not as good when you watched them the first time, there's a lot more rewarding stuff happening. Seeing them again.
How many people have gone back and watched Avengers: Age of Ultron post WandaVision now? We dogged that. We collectively was like, this ain't a good movie when it came out. And now in hindsight, people are like, well, you know what? It ain't that damn bad.
So language. You bring context into these things that maybe didn't have at first.
It's true. Second
question.
Move on. The pod room. Let's talk about the room discovered at the end of the episode by Fallsworth and G'iah.
Yeah.
You know, this felt like a sequence that was a much bigger scene, and they cut around it. It was in the trailer.
But they do that. MCU does it all.
Sure. But like, I think them kind of finding it and being weird, and they show this blonde guy, and we're like, who is that? I don't know. This guy. Who is this guy? They give us the time of showing him.
They really hold on him for a long time.
Doesn't it feel like he was supposed to be a bigger character in this show, and they were like, no.
Maybe. Can I see that picture again real quick? I'm gonna show you who that is.
Don't tell me it's quick.
Homelander.
No, that's just a cute white dude that they was like, look at his jaw structure.
We gotta
give why his jaw structure. Look at his jawline. You won't see that jawline, don't you?
Why are the Skrulls keeping all these people alive?
yeah, who are these people? Why are they there? Why are the fracking pods in this looking different than the fracking pods
Right.
in
These
the
are
other compound?
Maybe these
Where
are
is
long,
this?
deep storage.
Spatially, where is this?
Are the Skrulls hoping that, like, if they get discovered, they can be like, whoa, 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 before you guys get angry and shoot
Everybody's
us.
cool.
Everyone's still
They're
alive.
back there.
Can we just?
We got them in the back.
We got them in the back.
They're on ice.
We got them in the back.
Don't tell the scroll. Hey, listen. Hey, look. I know what this shit look like.
Yeah. I know this looks bad.
This looks bad.
I've been paying your taxes, dude. Okay?
Listen. I've taken care of your lawn.
Yeah,
okay?
I kept your cat alive.
I kept
all
your
right?
cat alive, bro. Calm down.
I've been banging your wife
For
on the
you.
regular. On the regular.
I've been giving your wife this green
Yeah, yeah.
dick. Now look, she takes it.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can't do it. But you thank me later.
I may just be an average Skrull. I'm no super Skrull, but I get it done. Are these the million other Skrulls? Obviously,
Right,
it's not a
that
million
felt like
in this
another
room.
thing that sort of was left alone. Fury was incredibly frustrated and upset with Talos about this million scrolls thing,
Yeah.
and then we never really got any follow up on it, right? And people are sort of like, well, maybe that's these.
Well,
are
there's
those
20.
Skrulls.
I would argue there's 20% of them living in compounds playing soccer.
I thought you said saying Compton. I'll say
No.
what?
A lot of them in Compton. A lot of them in Compton.
I never
Compton.
said that.
That's what I thought. There's 20% of scrolls out here living in Compton. I'm telling you something.
I said Concord, New Hampshire. There's probably a small percentage living in the woods or living in radioactive sites, whatever, doing their thing. There's probably a bunch that have just like they're switching every other day. They're bouncing around city to city. I don't know how. I don't know why. But where are the other 900,000 Skrulls?
Go back to
right
what, sorry, John. Go back to what Vara told G'iah about how she picked Priscilla Davis. Somebody she knew when she was as a hospital. Somebody who
that's a
was
smart plan.
All the million scrolls are geriatric.
Yeah,
They're
there's
like,
a lot of
we're
old.
waiting for
Ooh,
people
check
to
the
die.
retirement home.
They're
Check the retirement
probably
home.
again. I think because the scrolls, a lot of the scrolls that are there.
You're paying for your grandma's
Yeah.
retirement home.
Still alive.
I'm still
Like this bitch ain't died yet.
I love
I've been waiting on this goddamn insurance money.
But I collected my Social Security.
I've been collecting it for 72 years. Bitch, you don't die already. But I think
Do you think the Skrulls hang out at, like summer camps and like replace children? Take children to the woods, kill them,
That's
go into
Jesus,
the family as
that
a-
got
That's an
dark.
interesting show. I'll watch that.
Yeah.
The scroll murders.
Yeah.
But I think the scrolls have been, again, even with Gravik's compound, if you pay attention to a lot of the scrolls there, they're just living.
Yeah. They're just playing soccer.
They're playing soccer, they're just living. It's similar to the Flag Smashers, how they had that group of people with them that were just living. So
I wish they had just made the Flag Smashers Skrulls.
I thought I would have loved it.
They've
Another
had so
Americans
many
Against Russia.
Yes, they've
kind
had
of,
so many like refugee camps in the MCU with kids playing soccer.
Hey, no other sports these kids can play.
Moon Knight, make that call all Skrulls. Flag Smashers, make them all Skrulls. All these little like weird little camps, make them all Skrulls.
I love that just like a personality trait of all scrolls is to
They
become
love being in
religious
camps.
extremists.
They love having rain barrels. They
But
love having little
also,
gardens.
a million scrolls in hindsight compared to the population of Earth is
Tiny.
not a lot.
Tiny. Tiny.
Yeah, you
It's
spread
not
them
a
out.
lot.
You spread them out.
Yeah, because everybody keep being like a million scrolls. The population of Earth is over 7 billion.
Yeah.
Listen, I recently visited a lot of beautiful national parks in Utah, and I must say, our national parks program is one of the great things this country has done, and everyone should take advantage
Truly
of
is.
it. But you can put a bunch of scrolls out there because there's a lot of wide open spaces, man. Wide open spaces.
You can't build structures though.
This man
They don't
just
need
promoted.
structures.
What?
This man just promoted national parks for refugees.
If you're a scroll, couldn't you in theory?
Brandon's running for president. This is his
His
platform.
platform was national parks for
platform.
refugees.
I'm just saying there's room. And the comics have established that the Skrulls can be cows. That means the Skrulls could be
know
bison.
right, here's the thing.
The
Here's the
Skrulls
thing.
could be
Here's what I
bison.
gotta ask. Here's what I
Roaming
gotta
the
ask.
plains.
What in the United States, what do we consume the most of? It's probably chicken. But next is beef.
Pornography.
You want to
I'm gonna say
also
porn.
Also porn.
gonna say
You
porn.
want to be a sexy cow out there? You want to be a sexy cow that could potentially get killed?
They don't kill wild cows for beef.
I'm just saying,
they
like, if
raise
I'm a
wild
scroll,
cows.
if I'm a scroll, I'm a refugee,
There's
I'm
not
living on
wild
Earth.
herds of
There's
cows.
a 0% chance that's not true. There's a 0% chance I'm living as a cow. I'm not gonna do that.
That's why I offered buffalo, a protected species.
I'll do
You
a
would be
dolphin.
safe.
You do dolphins?
Listen to me, Rava,
lot of
Gravik,
sex.
G'iah. I'm
Yeah,
talking to you.
dolphins are sexual assaulters.
Yeah.
Well,
they
so
are.
are humans.
I would
That's
argue
true.
every animal is.
But dolphins. But see, dolphins out here to play with the cute face, like.
I mean, it's very subjective whether or
No,
not
the
that
dolphins be
face
like,
is
come
cute.
on.
Welcome back to the break.
Hey, speaking of the animal kingdom, let's talk about our sponsor for today. And that's treats. Are you tired of those lame local snacks at your local Sundry Mart? And I must say, who's ever making the chocolate in America now? What has gone wrong? Have you had a Reese's? Have you had a Reese's peanut butter cup recently? It tastes like plastic. Oh. What has happened to our chocolate, America? Let's fix it.
America has a problem.
But I'm telling you, Brandon Barrick's fucking campaign platform has been refugees in national forests, and I'm gonna fix the chocolate.
To be fair, intergalactic refugees.
Intergalactic refugees.
Humans deserve a home. These aliens, I don't care where you put them.
Whoa, Mulvaney.
If you've wanted to try some fun snacks from around the world, well, now's your chance with a Treats subscription box, folks. With Treats, every month you get a box of snacks from a different country. Countries such as Italy, Brazil, the United Kingdom, Poland, Indonesia, Malaysia, and so many more. The world is your oyster, and that's a tasty oyster, mon frere, whether you have it lightly steamed or Rockefeller style. This month we got a box of snacks and they were from Mexico. We ate them all this week, so we only have this box that is maybe full of loose
It's
cookies.
true, we did eat them all.
I was not here for 2 days and they left a mess. It's terrible. But you guys should try some delicious treats for yourself. Honestly, the box had a lot of good chocolates and chips and cookies and stuff I'd never tried before.
Takis, really good.
Takis, I found those around, but maybe in your local
No, but they were
area
special
don't
flavors, you know
They
what
had
I mean?
special flavors, yeah. You can try treats for yourself. Click the link below and use the code The Breakroom. That's all one word, THE Breakroom, to get 15% off your order.
What happens to Gravik's body, and why does that laser blast defeat him if he has extremis?
My wife asked the exact same thing. She's like, "Can it just heal?" I guess the implication I took was it was such a powerful Carol Danvers blast that it ate up enough of his organs at once to prevent him from reforming.
That's what I think. The same thing.
I guess.
I would.
What happens to his body? Who knows?
He becomes the harvest.
I guess so.
He becomes the next set of the harvest.
You just take his blood now.
Whoa.
Because again, now you can collect his blood and you figure out, okay, you're gonna study the science of the machine that made them that way. Number one,
right?
And now you have a scroll that became a super scroll.
Yeah.
That lady's got to die, right? We got to kill that
Dalton.
lady.
She's got to go.
The scientist, she's got to be dead.
Okay, multiple questions that branch off of this. One, the Skrull Daltons were working at this facility, but also going back to their home to
And that's
be
where they
the
got
Daltons, and that's where they get jumped. Which was that home in Russia also, or was that when they were back in London? I couldn't remember. They jumped
It has a lot of Game of Thronesy stuff in it, where it's like,
they
how
get
did you
around
travel
really
so
fast,
quickly?
really fast. Okay, so that's going on first of all, and they were both Skrulls, and one of them gets killed, but the other one does not. I guess
The husband gets killed, but the wife doesn't.
Does not, but they're both Skrulls. Okay, so that happens, and then the Daltons get released.
But
okay.
Is the wife a Skrull?
Yeah, they were both.
She
Skrulls.
was. Yeah,
Okay,
they got her
so-
out of a fractured
We see her
body.
get.
Oh yeah, we did see her. Yeah, you're right.
Gravik's body, yeah, I assume some government takes it. Probably the U.S., maybe the British.
Damage
I don't
control.
know. I mean,
DOGC.
Nick Fury was letting. We talked about this a little bit. Letting G'iah get all the Super Skrull abilities without being like, "You work for me now." He lets her go pair off with Sonya.
You know what? You know what? They should. This is what the post-credit scene should have been. Fury is like, well, I can't. Carol was supposed to find you this planet.
Right.
And I don't know what the fuck she's up to right now. G'iah,
It's
you've
up to
got
Yeah.
you've got Captain Marvel powers. Go find a planet for your
Yeah.
people, and she can go take care of
That's probably
the million Skrulls.
You know,
and get
there's
them on a planet.
also. I know this is a question we have later, Evan, but like the Emperor Droga of it all, General Droga, whatever they called him in this. Assuming those Skrulls are also out there, maybe they have found a home and they're just chilling, and they'll do a reverse from the comics and they'll be nice and sweet and everyone's getting
So this
along.
is what I wanted for the post-credit scene. So we see a scene on Saber. There's a bed, and there's some feet. There's Samuel L. Jackson
Green
feet.
feet? Oh, okay.
With some corns and bunions on it because he's been
God.
walking for a
Oh,
long, and he got old feet. Like
Yeah.
this,
Those
his-
nasty old men
like
toenails
his
that are
toenails,
like yellow.
like the
and
knuckles got that one big
so
toenail.
long.
You're like, why is it
Yeah.
Oh,
like
that's
this?
only for old men.
just
You might want to check that
brittle,
out. Just
just
brittles, like gout, and it's a little bit
grotesque.
ashy at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then it's got some green feet on top, and he just rolled over, and he still got the eye patch on in bed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like
He's got two. He's got two.
Two eye patches.
Real kink thing.
And so he gets called up on Saber. He's like, hold on, baby, let me answer this. And it's G'iah asking what to do. And he like, you got it?
Yeah.
Because like, I trust you. That's why I didn't come after you. I trust you. I know you're going to do the right thing with this. Because if Nick Fury didn't trust her, he wouldn't have given her the harvest.
Right.
If Fury didn't believe in her because he kept even saying how much he believed in her, like he believes she's basically like her dad. So if Fury didn't believe in her, he would have never given her the harvest. Because I thought it was a game, it was a joke until Gravik was like, "Oh, this is real." I was like, "Uh-oh, this is real." So I think Fury trusts her enough. And he knows that white British Fury is going to watch over her.
Right.
In Sonya Fallsworth. Oh, white British Fury.
And she's willing to get things done. She's willing to kill at least 20,000 Russians to get it done. She let the bombs go off. So when she has that, when G'iah as Fury has that confrontation with Gravik at the end and she's speaking on behalf of Fury. Fury hears none of this. Does not get this resolution with Gravik. The whole reason he came down was to deal with Gravik. He didn't do it because he's bad at his job. We'll get to that later.
But he knew he couldn't.
He lets G'iah have this conversation. Is anything of what she's saying actually Nick's feelings?
Well,
did she do a little memory suck of him
if there's
before
a
she left?
touchy,
A little
then
touchy.
Sure. I also think, right, like G'iah theoretically probably actually does know Fury really well.
Knows Fury well,
if
and
Fury
knows
and
Gravik
Talos,
well.
Fury and Talos are really close. G'iah is Talos' daughter. You probably see Fury as like an uncle type of figure in your life. Good family friends. I have people like that in my life. So I don't doubt that, she could have been in the next room when Fury and Talos are having a really heavy emotional conversation about this kind of thing. Or she touched his head.
Do you think Fury does know that Gravik has the face of the first person he killed and never called it out because Gravik's doing it as trying to get attention as an angry teenager, and Fury's like, I'm not playing that game. I'm not even gonna point it out. But he knew, but G'iah had no idea.
No, I don't think. No, let me tell you something.
You don't think Nick
He has
Fury?
a dossier somewhere.
I think Nick knows.
Nick knows everybody that was murdered by them. Yes,
Sure.
But I don't think he remembers that particular face. Who was the first person you killed? Again, because you got Gravik you know his face.
Yeah. So that's some psycho shit, by the way.
That is some psycho shit.
This man had a family. I was like, oh.
Every day it tears a piece away at my heart.
Is he British or Scottish? I'm so confused.
He's British.
I don't know.
It sounds Scottish sometimes.
Well, they have different accents.
I was always wondering,
on the island of Great Britain.
I just think Gravik was just Gravik saw Fury as a father and never admitted it. I think that's the biggest thing.
Sure.
Fury was a surrogate father to him.
Yeah, definitely.
And he would never say it. Yes, he said, look, I believed in you. You were my hero. My hero is one thing, but Fury was a second father to him.
Well, and I think that the driving motivation for a lot of people in Fury's life, which they touch on a lot, but I don't know if they ever really emotionally drive it home, was that Fury left and fucked up everyone's life. Everyone's life.
Yeah.
He fucked up Talos's life. He fucked up Priscilla's life. He fucked up Gravik's life. And they all responded to that differently.
So when G'iah is saying as Nick Fury, the moment I got dusted, I was relieved because I was done with this bullshit. Is that real? Is that how Nick Fury feels about the situation?
That might have been how G'iah feels.
Yeah,
She
probably
might have been dusted.
She might have been dusted.
I think Nick Fury feels that way too because we've all been in that situation where it's all right, I just got to deal with this problem and then everything will be fine. And when you're trying to deal with that problem, another problem pops up. And before you know, you got 50 problems and nothing's getting solved.
Yeah, but also, how can he be really relieved? Because when you think about it, remember, Spider-Man tells you, all of a sudden I got dusted and then I woke up.
Yeah.
It's for everybody that got snapped, it was instantaneous.
Right.
They had no idea it's been years or any time. It was just Monica Rambeau, when we see her in WandaVision, when she's sitting in the chair when Maria's dying, and then all of a sudden she gets snapped, she wakes up. The hell are you doing here?
The best example, right, is in Hawkeye with Yelena. She dusts and then undusts in a moment.
In a moment.
It was real to me. It was real to me. That's my Yelena.
Yeah. Okay. Show's over. Thank you guys so much for watching.
No.
Kidding.
Speaking of that final fight, let's talk about the final fight too. The powers, okay? So this is establishing that a lot of our heroes' powers are tied to their DNA.
Which would make sense.
Which makes sense. We want to talk about Ebony Maw real fast. Because
no.
Gravik makes an Ebony Maw arm, which is adorable. And it has rings on it. Rings on the fingers. Now, this is a cue for the audience that this is Ebony Maw, I guess, to let us know. But these rings are not part of his DNA, are they?
Well,
you think he saw a photo of Ebony Maw?
You have this problem, and you've been complaining about this the whole
Yes, here we
fucking
go.
show,
Here we go,
Brandon.
baby.
Which
Here
is
we
like,
go.
how do they transform their clothes or their
Right,
clothes
yes,
their skin?
yes.
And it's like, you know,
The clothes are not their skin.
Jay's an actor. He can empathize with this. A lot of the times when an actor gets into their costume, it's when they finally feel like themselves in character.
Sure.
Maybe this is just how Skrulls operate, which is like I'm taking the kind of form of Ebony Maw, and I
okay.
want to embody him
Okay.
as much as possible, so that I can get
Okay.
the full essence of him.
Okay.
I can channel my essence through his power.
Let's ask this question.
There we go.
Do you have a picture of Ebony Maw in Infinity War?
Not pulled up, not queued up.
Because if you look at Ebony, just find a picture of Ebony Maw's hands, and then you can sit there and say, "Oh, he did have rings we didn't see."
Right. I agree with that, but how does by having his DNA, does Gravik know that rings need to be formed on the
Hey man,
arm?
look.
He doesn't.
And
need-
here's my
the thing,
argument.
He doesn't need to know.
Here's my argument.
He's seen Ebony Maw.
They're
Well,
part-
he hasn't because he dusted.
Yeah.
I don't
Here's
know. It's a fucking mess.
Here's why. And the answer is
No,
those aren't rings, they're part of his body.
Also, he
No.
probably. You got to remember when stuff was happening, there were news cameras covering it.
Yeah.
So he may have seen Mal just for the
Maybe.
second.
Well, because he does the harvest, right? And so theoretically, there's some. I mean, even though Ebony Maw should have dusted or whatever, there
No,
is
the
some.
Mal wouldn't have dusted. You know why? Because he got blown the fuck into space.
Yeah.
Even the,
Well,
well, the second
all
Mal.
the
The
sec-
second Mal.
the
Okay,
Mal
the second.
from the past.
Yes, from the pal.
I think they
why are we saying
did.
Mao now? Is this,
I
called him the Maw. The
Ebony
Maw.
Maw. I do think it was smart of them to not pick like. First of all, thank goodness we didn't see any chaos magic. I would have been so angry if some Scarlet Witch powers popped out because that's magic. You gotta learn it. You gotta. It's not in her DNA. Second of all, they didn't pick like characters that had like costume that you had to see right. They very smartly picked characters. They're very distinctive in their body, physically.
Yeah.
So much to the point that they went with the ice giant, which no one remembers,
The Frost
to make
Giant.
an ice sword. Because like, I wonder if they were like, hey, no one in the MCU really has ice powers. Wouldn't that be?
Where
We'll
would
just
you
break
get?
back
My
the
question
Frost
is,
Giant.
where would you get the DNA from Frost Giant?
They showed. That's a great question. There might have been some of them fighting in the in-game battle. I don't remember honestly, because he brings in a lot of weird Chitauri forces and like other strange things. There might have been a Frost Giant, but also it is.
Frost piece from Thor:
The
the Dark
Frost
World.
Giant, it's from, we talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
It's from
Thor: the Dark World.
Thor 2.
Sure,
when
sure.
They're collecting the data, the
And
DNA.
during the convergence, there
okay,
was some coming
right.
through, and
Okay.
like the harvest isn't just the in-game battle.
Of course,
it's like
it's
all
all
the
of the
DNA
same-
they've
yeah.
connected over time.
Yeah, because one of the things that was also in trailers that we didn't get in the show was the DODC briefcase
Yes.
with the coal obsidian DNA.
Yes.
So there was a pre-harvest.
There was
thing
some sort of
happening.
yeah.
Department of Damage Control maybe had some of this DNA.
Right.
Fury was connected to it, and then was like, "Oh, I've got a great idea. We should
It's
do that."
so
for
much
everyone."
just DNA just all out over
It's
the place.
everywhere. I was just in Gattaca. It's everywhere. You
Love
gotta,
that.
You gotta burn it.
Love that movie.
Love that movie. Another
Jude
crazy kind of thing to come out of this series, which again, looking back, we might decide that like, oh, this series was very important for all the insane stuff it brought up. Fury says that he needs help for Priscilla at the end of the episode because the Kree are ready for peace talks. This is a huge shift.
This is after
in what we know
Carol
about the
Danvers
Kree.
beat that ass.
Well, and one thing I do like is that in the Marvel's trailer, right, Dar-Ben calls her the Annihilator, which I like the idea of Carol Danvers. We don't know what she's been up to. She's been out in space. She's been dealing with stuff. She told the Avengers, like, you guys had a lot easier than everyone else. They don't have you guys. I think she's out there just straight up murdering these Kree. And, like, they're ready to be like, okay, we give. She's flown through all of our ships. She flew through an orphanage ship and crashed into the ocean. We're not evolving. We need your help, Fury. Can you please settle this?
Can you call this crazy bitch out?
And I think the Marvel's trailer the Marvel's movie might be like Dar-Ben. It represents kind of like, a zealot who's like, no, we're not going to peace talks. And the rest of the Kree are like, don't worry about Dar-Ben. She doesn't speak for us. And Dar-Ben's gonna be like, no, we're not going for peace.
I saw a theory that I really liked online, which was saying in Spider-Man: Far From Home, when Maria Hill, Soren, and Nick Fury Talos were talking, Nick says something like, "I thought Kree's supercells was top secret information." Someone was suggesting that President Ritson was perhaps a Kree sleeper cell, and I thought that would be really funny because at the end he's like,
Yeah,
The
yeah.
way he's
kill
so
all the
anti-Skrulls.
fucking Skrulls.
He's anti all aliens.
Very interesting.
The Asgardians are not
the new
gonna like
Asgardians.
that.
I thought that was interesting. It would be fun to see somehow that tie
Yeah.
into this.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Dermot Mulroney's agent for getting the man a role where he was sitting 99% of that show.
Man, sitting and laying
Sitting in a
bed.
car, sitting in a bed. President gives a speech, sitting.
Sitting.
I think he walked in like one sequence. He walked in the White House
Yeah, in the
once.
White House.
and
He walked on the
tarmac.
On the tarmac.
This is a quick diatribe, and I don't know if I have an answer for this. What is Colonel Rhodes' position in the government? He's not the
He's like chief of
Secretary of
staff.
Defense.
He's like chief of staff.
You think he's chief of staff?
That's the only way he's that close to the president and able to
I
talk.
know, and he's like a military. They still call him Colonel Rhodes.
I mean,
so he's
still
not
has
an
his-
admiral or anything. I don't even know.
I mean,
ranks. I don't know if could
he
be
cut
an
that admiral down real quick. He was like,
But if you are someone like chief of staff, right? That doesn't hold a title,
Right.
And you don't like go Mr. Chief of Staff, or maybe you do. I don't fucking know. But you would call him still Colonel Rhodes.
I guess so. If you would call him by his highest title. That's usually what you do, right?
Someone saying Chief of Security, they could be lying.
Chief
I have
of
no idea.
Security.
I think he would be more-
It was just wasn't very clear. I mean, I understand he's the War Machine. He's got a suit.
I'll say
He's
it
in a-
doesn't seem like he's Secret Service because the Secret Service seems to
No.
be working for him.
Yeah.
Because he's an Avenger as well as military.
Maybe he has a new position in the
He's-
government.
he
that
could be
exists
chief of staff.
in the MCU.
Look.
Yeah, some people in the comment are saying like, it's the MCU, it's not the it's not
Right.
the world,
Their
and it's possible that
structure's
like
different.
they have a new cabinet position
Right.
for an Avenger
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right.
After the Sokovia Accords, which had to be
Right.
ripped up, finally. I just think like Rhodey and all them Rhodey just had a position. Can you imagine though the real Rhodey comes out and be like, I was doing what? I worked for who?
Let's talk about that because
Okay.
there's a lot of questions about when Rhodey was flip-flopped.
They did not answer.
We have a new quote from the director today that I've lost.
Because it did. While you're looking for that, I'll say that like
It's right after Endgame.
it looks like they set up.
Well,
Well,
no.
they almost set up that it's after Civil War, right? Because he's in the scrubs, which we saw him go into the MRI.
in the scrubs.
In the scrubs. Now, this is
lot
a
of
man who
arguments back and
would
forth.
probably have a lot of medical visits following that injury, and at any one of those you can swap him out. This is also a man who's over 40, so he's probably getting his prostate examined every now and
Jesus.
then. He's getting a colonoscopy.
Jesus.
You have to go under for a colonoscopy. It's a standard medical procedure. You make the switch while you got a
Could
tube
be
up
into
your
some
ass.
weird kinky shit where he just wears a hospital gown
Yeah,
during
yeah,
sex.
yeah.
We don't know.
Maybe he was getting a tummy tuck.
People are frustrated, and I agree with this position of like, does this, if it is a Civil War swap, which makes sense,
No,
it really
what-
does, is it undercutting all of the events of Endgame? And I think it like could.
Here's why I'm gonna disagree with you and I'm gonna cut you
Okay.
off. Because at the end of Civil War, he has to get the leg thing because he can barely walk.
Right.
That's the
He-
scroll now.
The scroll would probably be able to walk. But because here's the thing, this how come you know it's not the scroll? Because in Secret Invasion, he's never wearing it. He's never wearing the leg brace.
He wasn't wearing them in Falcon and Winter Soldier. He wasn't wearing them in Endgame or whatever.
In Endgame, he just wore the suit. We didn't really see him much.
Yeah, I don't remember if we see him, but I assume there
He
was.
did
I
wear.
assume that
He
Tony,
did when they came when they were in the Avengers compound. He did have the lower leg brace on.
Yeah.
So he got snatched up after. He got snatched up between somewhere after Falcon Winter Soldier.
Okay. Oh, after Falcon Winter Soldier. Okay. Okay.
Or before. I'm sorry, before Falcon Winter. Excuse me.
Okay.
Before he got snatched up between Endgame and Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Because I like that because I don't think Rava as a Skrull is doing all the work that he had to do during
No.
the blip,
Well,
going around dealing with all this bullshit. That Rava character was not doing extra work that she didn't need
I'm here to
to
make
do.
everyone upset.
Okay, make me
Here's
upset.
a quote. Here's a quote from the director.
Okay.
A lot of people have asked definitively, when did Rhodey? He
Is that-
says.
is it-
He
it
says
trails off.
question mark. He says, I think his leg's not working in the end of episode 6 and him being in the hospital gown points to Captain America Civil War. And from there, does it have to be definitive or is it more fun for the audience, go fuck yourself, to go back and revisit every moment, every Rhodey moment and look at it with a different lens now and they think, oh, he might have been a Skrull there and make the decisions for himself. And then the end of the quote is insane because he says, or it'll be answered in Armor Wars. Push it down the line.
No, we are not. No, bruh. No. Hell no. Hell no.
I think they will not go with Civil War.
Yeah, I think
That seems
that's
nuts.
just him saying something because I
Seems
refuse to take that
nuts.
as a lot. No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, if he doesn't have a definitive answer, why does he expect us to have a definitive answer? That's rude. Rude.
How rude.
How rude. How
Anyway.
rude. Speaking of rude, Emperor Droja. Draja? Is that how
I think it's Drogue.
Taylor say? Drogue. Draja.
Evan disagrees with me.
So we didn't get a lot of payoff here. The name was dropped. It's a name from the comics. They like to do this a lot, right? They'll just pull names from the comics and throw them in there just to make us all nerds happy. Do we think this will ever get brought back up? I mean, it's a good reason to have Skrulls in space somewhere. In that Marvel's trailer, there's a moment where Aman Vellani character Kamala Khan in street clothes is making a concerned face. In the blurry background, you see a Skrull like kind of running, or at least a green-faced alien. I don't know.
Why?
Do we think we'll run into these Skrulls in space that are working with?
I think we'll see
Drogue?
some Skrulls. I mean,
Draja.
it's Saber.
Yeah.
It's their
Certainly
own
on Saber, but this
Sabers
looked
have
like
Skrulls.
not a
Just-
Saber situation.
No, I'm just saying there's Skrulls on Saber.
Mm-hmm.
So for there to be Skrulls on Saber, they're going to be Skrulls somewhere else. Remember, that isn't all the Skrulls left.
Sure. Yeah.
That,
So
that
Skrulls
came
in
up-
space.
There's Skrulls in
So
space.
the show implied that they're only on Earth or with Droge.
Right, but I think certain when you get certain names mentioned, again, it's a comic book reference.
Yeah.
Will it pay off? Possibly not. Will this whole thing with Dar-Benn being like, "Yo, you were a Kree," to Carol Danvers, you were a Kree soldier. You know, now you hate all of us, and Droge is probably a part of that. There's little bitty things, but I think those are things we start going back to that. We overthink a lot of little bitty things,
Right.
instead of letting them play out. Because again, we want this resolution automatically with this one thing, because we're like, this is what the show was. We need all this resolution instead of going, this is what this chapter is, into the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
It never ends.
And the next one.
I would love a segment where they go back and they look at the Zapruder film and they're like, if you watch right here, after Kennedy gets his head blown off, he turns green.
And then Jackie throws a
And
mask
then
on top of him.
Jackie throws a
It
mask.
looks really
on.
bad.
She pulls out some ketchup. She sprays it around so there's not purple blood. There's red blood. They clean it up real fast.
Hey, there's a few more unanswered questions that we didn't have time to get to today. A couple things like G'iah and her Super Skrull powers. Is she the most OP person in the MCU now? Things like
Yes.
Beto and the Skrull insurrection that didn't feel like it had a great setup or payoff. We may get into those later this week, but we wanted to kind of sort of thank you guys for watching this with us today.
Yeah.
If you guys have any more questions, throw them in the comments, and maybe next week we'll grab a bunch of those
We'll
and,
do a
and talk
part
about
two.
those as well.
We'll do a part two. For sure.
Also, yes, you don't need any other Avenger anymore now with
You
G'iah.
just got G'iah.
I don't know. You still, yeah, maybe. She doesn't have Ant-Man's powers. I'm glad I didn't see anyone shrink.
He doesn't have powers. It's a suit.
It's just a
Exactly, but I was afraid they would just be like, bleh. Well, and we do know that the pin particles start fusing with your body.
It's true. That's true.
Who knows? Are we gonna talk
Does that
about?
mean he has tiny sperm when he tries to? Never mind.
I think you could get it mixed up, and you could.
He
I think he has
could
one
become a
giant
sperm.
sperm now.
Oh.
It's about the size of a goldfish.
Anyways,
like,
thank you
somewhere
guys so
inside.
much.
Are we gonna have a movie talk tomorrow? Is that
We're gonna be we're come back. We're gonna talk about Oppenheimer tomorrow. We're a little late, but we wanted to
give
talk about
people time
Barbie
to
last
see it,
week.
yeah.
It's a long film. People might have been stuck in the theater watching it for a really long time. We'll be back tomorrow talking about
Jay, you gonna come talk about Oppenheimer?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Well, on that note, that's it for us today. Make sure to give us a follow here on Twitch.
Follow us on X too, at Grin and Barrick.
Oh no! Oh no! Make sure you're following us right here on YouTube, and also check us out on Twitch over at Breakroom in our.
You guys on Threads yet?
Join us on Threads. I think we're on Threads.
You on Threads?
Yeah, I'm on Threads.
You prefer Threads over Twitter? X at this point?
As of right now, yes, because
Follow Jay on Threads at Jay Washington.
Mr. J. Washington.
Mr.
Because
J.
here's the thing, I don't want to start putting, because X videos is a whole nother thing.
dangerous.
That is not what you think it is.
One of my favorite sites.
You can catch us on Twitch where we do this live, and don't forget to subscribe to the Breakroom channel right here on YouTube. We'll catch you next time. Late as gay as. Have a good evening. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.